Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. And welcome to episode 11 of Shelf Space. This is the series where I ask the simple question, is this title worth the shelf space that it's taking up? Today is a special episode because not only are all three of these brand new releases, two of them in fact just came out a couple of days before this video will be released, while the other one came out maybe a week earlier, but either way, all three of them don that A for Arrow video. We are looking at Poseidon, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. All three of these were very highly anticipated for me, so let's talk about if I think these upgrades are worth it or not. So let's not waste any more time at all, guys. Let's dive right into episode 11 of Shelf Space. So let's get started with the disaster flick out of the bunch here. So we're going to talk 2006's Poseidon, directed by Wolfgang Petersen. So this is a movie that I have seen more times than I can count at this point. However, I have yet to see the original film that this one is a remake of, which is really crazy, and I definitely need to correct that. But anyway, let's look at the release itself here real quick. So we have the slipcover from Arrow, and then I've already flipped this over. The reversible cover art looks identical to the artwork that was on the slipcover, as you see there. I always flip these over when there's a slipcover just because I like having the different art on the inside. Anyway, Poseidon is a disaster film. We follow this group of people who are on a giant cruise ship with the titular Poseidon name, and the cruise ship gets hit by this gigantic rogue wave. And because of that, it flips it over. Tons of people die right in the beginning of this, but we are following a small group of people. Kurt Russell is one of our main characters here. He plays, I believe it's a former mayor of New York, of all things. And then his daughter is played by Emmy Rossum. She has a love interest she's engaged to now, but they haven't told her father yet. So that's kind of one of the subplots as the movie progresses. Richard Dreyfuss is in this. He's excellent as just one of the main characters in here as well. I think he does a great job. And then there are some other people in this that I couldn't tell you their names offhand, but they just looked familiar. I've seen them in other things. And so, yeah, it's a really good cast with this movie, and I think that's really what drives it. So the accident, right? The disaster happens very early on in this film, within maybe the first 15 or so minutes. And then from there, it's just an escape film. We're trying to watch them to see if they will make it to the surface or not. All the while, there's all these different things happening with the ship. It is, starting to just fill up with water, collapse in areas. There's fire in other spots. Like, it's very interesting to watch from start to finish. And I think what I noticed this time through was just how tense it is pretty much the entire time from when that disaster happens all the way through the end. There's a moment in this where my wife, who's watched this with me virtually every time I've seen it, she was actually tearing up because she didn't remember what happened to one of the characters, and she was very concerned for them. And I thought that was just hilarious because we've seen this movie so many times, yet she just couldn't remember. And so that really got to her. So that just really proved to me how emotional the movie can be, even though we really are dealing with archetypes here. We don't really get much of a backstory for many of these characters, and what's there is incredibly shallow, but still, I cared about their survival. Like, I wanted them to make it to the top, and if they weren't going to make it, I wanted to see in what interesting and unique ways they would perish. So that's the mark of a good action film in my book. It's very shallow, not deep at all, but man, it is fun to watch. I think the set pieces on this are great. That initial rogue wave hitting the Poseidon, I think looks awesome. And that's one thing I will say, for a film from 2006, I thought the CGI on this held up really well. Obviously, there is a ton of CGI. The opening shot, I believe remember something from the special features where it was one of the longest shots done fully in CGI, or not fully, obviously, there's actors involved and there's staircases and things like that, but just the way it was done, it was notable for that reason, just being all CGI. And so I thought that was interesting. I love that opening sequence where we get the full cruise ship as we make our way from one corner all the way around to the next, and it's really just a great establishing shot for the rest of the movie, and I loved that aspect of it. So for the movie itself, I feel like it holds up really well. Not just the CGI, but just the whole action aspect of this film is kind of universal in its appeal. And I think that's why I've watched it so many times over the years and always think of it as a movie I really enjoy. Now, that said, I was looking at my Letterboxd account, and I guess the last time I watched this, for whatever reason, I only gave it 3 stars. But watching it again, I think to myself, why? I don't know. I've always thought about this movie in high regard. Now, it's not a 5-star film, not even a 4-star film, but it's still a really enjoyable action movie. So I am going to give Poseidon 3.5 out of 5 stars. Definitely one that if you haven't seen, it's absolutely worth checking out. Now let's talk about the disc itself a little bit here. So in terms of the AV quality, out of the 3 we'll talk about today, this is probably the most notable of the upgrades because it's not quite as color graded and the stylized as maybe the other 2 we're going to talk about today. And so I thought the 4K presentation on this looked really well done. The Dolby Vision color grade is on here, and I think it works well. It is a darker film just because of the whole scenario that they're in. Obviously, once the ship tips over, they're going to lose power. And so a lot of this is done in night sequences. However, there are some moments where the flames are really popping well with that Dolby Vision that I really appreciated, and just other random moments like that that I think work well. However, this isn't going to be a demo disc by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know that there's just a whole lot here that you can point to and think, wow. I talked about in my last episode of Shelf Space, what I really love with 4K are a lot of those cityscape and landscape scenes. Those are what really wow me the most. Like To Catch a Thief, I thought looked incredible on 4K. I can't imagine watching it on anything less than 4K at this point. Poseidon, I could watch this on Blu-ray again and I wouldn't see that much of a difference, I don't think. So in terms of the video, I think it's a good upgrade, but nothing that's worth writing home about. In terms of the audio, though, I think that's really where this shines. It sounded fantastic with this, and it's only a 5.1 track. It's not even a Dolby Atmos track, but it is the original DTS HD 5.1 master audio track, and the LFE on this worked really well. It was rumbling my house. Now, when I think of movies that rattle my house, I always think of Godzilla, the 2014 remake. That one just blew me away when I watched it. This isn't quite at those levels, but I do think it works really well. It sounded awesome from start to finish. So highly recommend the soundtrack on this, if nothing else. In terms of, audio video, I think the audio trumps the video in this case, but the video still did look great as well. So no issues there with that. In terms of the special features, and I'll say some of these I watched all the special features, some of these I only watched 1 or 2. This is one, I only watched 1 of them because it happened to be hosted by the Serial at Midnight host, Heath Howland. Didn't even realize that coming into this. And so I watched that one. It's about 17 minutes. And I thought Heath just did a great job. Honestly, it was like watching one of his YouTube videos. If you haven't checked out Serial at Midnight, highly recommend him if you are a film fan, which if you're watching this, of course you are. He did an excellent job on that. I thought it was just a well done kind of commentary or retrospective on the film. Now, there are a bunch of other new special features. Mostly, I think there's 3 different interviews with visual effects artists and things like that, special effects as well. So tons of new things to dig your teeth into if you are interested in knowing more about this movie. So definitely worthwhile in terms of the special features. But yeah, I think this is a disc that I am very happy to own, even if it's not a night and day upgrade from the Blu-ray. I'm just happy to have it in the boutique, given the boutique treatment, the new special features. I mean, it's really cool. And on top of that, you do get a booklet included as well with some writings on the film, which is just always fun to see. So, I'm happy with my upgrade, but if you are not someone who's already a giant fan of this movie, it might not be worth running out and spending right now you can get this for $25 when this video goes up. Might not be worth that to you, but if you haven't seen it, absolutely worth checking out at least once. Not everyone's going to want to watch it as many times as I have, but I enjoy this one quite a bit. So, like I said earlier, Poseidon's 3.5 out of 5, and it is definitely worth the shelf space that it's taking up. All right, now let's move over to my most anticipated film of this month, and that is, of course, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003, directed by Marcus Nispel. So I talked about this in my anticipated releases, how this was just the one for me. I love this movie, and watching it again now, nothing has changed. I absolutely adore this film. So with this one, you can see the slipcover on here, which I know not a lot of people really like this. I don't have too much of a problem with it. I don't love it, but I think it's okay. But I do love this, the original poster art here. So I really like the reversible cover art better than what they have on the front. Even though even this isn't that great, frankly, but it's just a little more iconic for me, I guess. And speaking of iconic, Jessica Biel will never not be iconic to me in this movie. Her role has just been emblazoned in my memory since 2003 when I watched this in theaters on opening weekend. I love her in this film. But not only her, I think the rest of the cast does a really nice job as well with their roles. But for me, she is the standout. I didn't even realize it before, but something I noticed on this time through is just how many homages there are to the original. And I think it's because I've watched the original not that long ago now. And so I really just appreciated that a heck of a lot more this time through than I really ever did in the past. The way most of those homages are done is right through the cinematography, which again, I didn't realize until this time through, it's the exact same cinematographer, Daniel Pearl, that did the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is fantastic. And I think he brings, it's so interesting to me because not only does he bring something new to this, it feels a lot different. I would say less, I can't even say less dirty, less gritty, because it still is. It's just in a glossier way, maybe, if that makes sense. But it's still his cinematography that makes this movie work so well. And I think when you compare the cinematography of this to the prequel that we'll talk about next, you just really see how brilliant Daniel Pearl is as a cinematographer. He does such a great job with this. There are so many shots in here that are just hauntingly beautiful to look at. The use of fog, I think, is awesome. Whenever the chainsaw starts revving up and the smoke that emanates from it, it looks so cool. It is just such a beautiful movie to look at in some ways. But in other ways, it is color graded to the max. It is stylized as much as you could possibly imagine. And because of that, the 4K disc on this really doesn't feel like much of an upgrade from the Blu-ray, to be honest with you. But anyway, I'm not even going to give a synopsis here, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you're watching this video, you know what TCM is, and this is simply a remake of the original. So many moments in this go, you can tie right back to the original, but I thought what was interesting here is that the first half of this movie feels very similar to the original, where when we get to the next one, I might have something different to say, but I don't want to jump the gun here. So with this one though, again, it hit me at the perfect time. This was 2003. I was, 16, 17 years old when this movie came out, and I was blown away when I saw this in theaters, because keep in mind, this is really before that torture era, but you can see that kind of brewing with this movie, and then we get Saw shortly after, which really jumpstarts the torture era. And you can see that brewing here, and I love that era just because of the age I was when I watched it. It's very nostalgic for me. So watching this again, I was really taken by the gore and the violence in this, because it's not quite as bad as I remember. When you get to the next one, though, things are cranked up just a little bit because we are knee deep in that torture era. But I love this movie. Jessica Biel is as good as they come in a horror film from this era. The rest of the cast does a really good job as well. What they are put through, I think, and how they handle it is just so notable and appreciated here. What was also really interesting is that there is a special feature on here about the lost Leatherface, which I didn't even know about until now, where the first kill or the first moments of Leatherface in this movie are played by one actor, but then he had a heat stroke on day one of shooting, and they had to replace him with the actor who plays Leatherface throughout the rest of this movie and into the sequel. He does a great job with this either way. I think more so maybe in the sequel. But yeah, this is just, again, the reason I will always give remakes a chance. I love this movie, and I find it so fun to watch every single time I watch it. If you haven't seen it, no reason you shouldn't if you are a fan of this style of movie. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. So the movie itself, I'm giving 4 out of 5 stars, which is, I think, pretty much what I've given it for every time I've seen it since I saw it back in theaters, where I'm sure on IMDb, I clicked that 10 to give it 10 out of 10 because that's just what I did back then. So let's talk a little bit about the disc itself, because that's why most people are here, to see if this is worth the upgrade or not. So we'll start with the audio this time, because I think they did an excellent job with this. Now, I would have guessed that the original audio track for this was the 5.1, but according to how I'm reading this on the back of the box, it says the original DTS HD Master Audio 7.1 track. So maybe that's how it was in theaters. I don't know, frankly, without looking it up. And so that's how I ended up watching this movie, and I thought it sounded fantastic. Much like the original, the use of the chainsaw really stands out to me, because once it turns on, it just overtakes everything on the screen, as it should. Chainsaws are loud, and so I always love that. I praise that about the original, and I will praise that here, because for my money, I think that's exactly how it should be, and it just sounds awesome. It makes that chainsaw feel more menacing than it might otherwise. So I think the sound design on this is done really well. In terms of the picture quality, as I've touched on already, this is just an extremely stylized film, and because of that, you're just not getting that uptick in picture quality that you might otherwise get for a film that's not quite as color graded and stylized as this one is. I think this is going to be the best this film will ever look, but it's not much of a notable upgrade from the Blu-ray. So just keep that in mind. This one is frankly, it's just not that impressive in terms of the 4K disc, which is a little disappointing, but frankly, it's something that we should have all figured coming into this if we were fans of this movie. I should have realized that. I should have had my expectations set a little bit lower. For me, I didn't buy this just because I wanted a huge uptick in the picture quality. I wanted the boutique treatment. I wanted the booklet that we get on the inside. I wanted all the new special features that we get with this one. We get the legacy features moved over here as well. So I really didn't buy this specifically just for the 4K picture quality. I bought it for the entire package. And for that, I'm very pleased. Now, this is one where I watched all of the special features on this just because I love this movie so much. I wanted to take the time to do that. And all of them are worth watching. I loved the interview with Daniel Pearl. Again, I can't get over how great of a job he does with this film. There are just sequences in this that I think looked incredible that you just have to see. And I think because of him, that's why. His eye mixed with Marcus Nispel, they just do a fantastic job together. So I think that interview is really the standout for me, but all of them are definitely worth your time. So I think this is just a great package for this movie. I'm so happy to own it from Arrow Video. Never would have expected this to get the boutique treatment, especially from Arrow. Maybe something like Scream Factory I could have guessed, but now that Arrow's put it out, I couldn't be happier. Obviously, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is worth the shelf space and then some, because I'm not getting rid of my Blu-ray. I'm not getting rid of my DVD. I love this movie. I will own it on every format that I possibly can. TCM 03 is just an all-time favorite of mine. So let's wrap things up today with the prequel to the 2003 film Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. So as I mentioned in my anticipated releases video, I didn't remember much about this film coming into it, and I was very surprised when I went on Letterboxd and saw that I gave this film 4 out of 5 stars the first time I watched it. I loved it, but I just don't remember too much about it. Now, as the movie was playing, I definitely remembered seeing it because there are just moments in here that will stick with you. But yeah, so I was very surprised that I gave it such a high marks because I didn't remember loving it, but apparently I did. So anyway, here is the slipcover on this, arguably even worse than 03. And there is the back there, not that you guys can read any of that. And then this one I really like. This is the original poster art. This is what my Blu-ray looks like as well, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, very happy to have this. And then I didn't show the inside, but it looks identical. This is the TCM, The Beginning, if I can get that right side up. And then you get the booklet as well. So, you know, just all three of these, they come with the booklet, reversible cover art and the slipcover, as you would expect from Arrow Video. So as I mentioned, this one is a prequel, not to the original film, but to the remake. And so everything that we may have been wondering about some of the characters in the remake is explained here. For example, there's a character who is in a wheelchair in the remake, and we find out why that is with this prequel film. Now, the only thing that is, it's just kind of inherent with a prequel, watching it, you know who has to live because you've seen the next part of this, and you know that some people have to die. And so because of that, it just takes away from the suspense a little bit. That said, I still really enjoyed this. I think this is just a really well done Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. It does feel a little bit more generic to me than the remake did from '03, but I still think it's worth, a worthwhile entry in the TCM franchise. Not a necessary viewing in the franchise, not essential, but definitely one that's fun. And if you enjoy TCM, you're going to have a good time with this one because it's basically just more of the same. So where I talked about with TCM '03, really feeling like the first half felt more like the original, TCM the beginning, the second half really feels more like the original, including the infamous dinner sequence that happens, some of the shots even with the shaky cam as one of the characters are running away. That is very much from the original. And so the whole second half of this, you could very much see its roots with the original. And so I really appreciated that. Jordana Brewster plays our main girl in this one, essentially the Jessica Biel equivalent from the remake. And Jordana Brewster is a great actress. However, she's not nearly on the same level that Jessica Biel was in the remake. It's just, she didn't have quite the same presence that Biel did, and she's not quite as much of a baddie as Jessica Biel is, I would say. She does her best, but obviously, again, it's just because you're dealing with a prequel, you are limited in what can go on here. So I really like her in this. I don't like her quite as much as I like Jessica Biel in the remake, but that's neither here nor there. I think the rest of the cast on this, again, they just do a really nice job. I think the other female actress in this is a real standout. I think she's great right from the beginning of the movie. She just does a nice job throughout. And watching these characters go through what they go through, again, it's just a testament to the actors themselves and what they're willing to put themselves through. I really appreciate that. Now, Daniel Pearl's cinematography from the original, it really stands out as being just fantastic, especially when you watch something like this, which is giving some homages to that filmmaking style and that just some of those shots. But it's not quite on the level that Daniel Pearl is. So it just really makes you appreciate the artistry that Pearl brings to the table. And I think the cinematographer here does a great job, but they're not Daniel Pearl. And so I would have loved to see Pearl return for this one as well, but unfortunately that just wasn't the case. The composer, however, is the same on both of these movies. And when I watched the special feature from the remake, he was also talking about his work on this one, and I think they do a great job. Nothing really that was like stand out as memorable to me, but I think it just really helped build the atmosphere, which is what the score should do. Again, there are some really nice shots in this, but they're not quite as good as the remake. But there are some really well done homages to the original that I very much appreciated. So R. Lee Ermey as our main villain in this, and the sheriff, right, in the remake, I think he does such a great job. He has even, I would argue, a bigger role here. He's just able to do more, show more, but I think he does a fantastic job. He's just so hateable, which is exactly what he should be. So I just think it's a really good cast and a good movie, a bit more generic than the remake, but still a worthwhile entry in this franchise. So I'm going to give TCM the beginning 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not quite as good as the remake, but still an enjoyable film nonetheless. Now let's talk about the AV side, and pretty much what I talked about with the remake, you can just rinse and repeat for this one. Now in terms of the audio, this one does have only a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, so no 7.1. There's actually a stereo audio on here as well, 2.0. And I'll mention this both has the theatrical cut and the unrated cut on the same disc, on the 4K disc, which I didn't even talk about. All three of these releases today, they only have a 4K disc. There is no Blu-ray Blu-rays included in any of these. I should have mentioned that earlier. But anyway, I love getting both cuts here. I did watch the unrated cut. Maybe I'll go back and watch the theatrical at some point, but that's just not something I had time for at this point because I wanted to get this video out here. So yeah, it's just... Again, with the audio, I think it sounds great. No issues there at all. The chainsaw works really well, and you could hear all the dialogue well. No issues. When it comes to the video side, again, it's just so stylized. It looks damn near identical to what they did with the remake. And, you know, if you watch this one into the other, you wouldn't miss a beat because they look the exact same. So the director on this one, Jonathan Liebesman, really paid respect to what Marcus Nispel did in the remake. And I appreciate that because they're supposed to be set in the exact same universe. So I really like that. But yeah, so rinse and repeat. It's not great. You know, it's not that much of an upgrade, but it's as good as this film's ever going to look. So with this one, I'm happy with the presentation. The special features that I've watched were great as well. I didn't watch all of them on this one. I did watch a number of them, and they were absolutely worthwhile. Again, it's just, I love getting these new interviews of people looking back on this in a retrospective way. So I really appreciated that. And I will definitely be sticking this back into the player at some point to get through the rest because it's just a franchise that I really enjoy. So very happy with this Arrow presentation here. So I'm going to give, or rather, I already gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I will say that this one is also very much worth the shelf space for me. Won't be the same for everybody, but for me, being a giant fan of this franchise, definitely one I'm happy to own. So all 3 of these were pretty interesting to me because not a single one of them was I wowed on the 4K presentation. So for all 3 of these, I would pretty much give the same advice. If you love these movies like I do, run out, get them while they're on sale for 25 bucks. You will not be disappointed. If you are not a huge fan, you maybe only seen them once and you think, oh yeah, it's pretty good, stick to the Blu-ray. If you have that, you can probably get it cheaper for all of these than what I paid for, you know, these 4K discs. So it is what it is. I love them. I'm happy to have them, but a lot of people that don't love these are not going to be very thrilled with their purchase if you run out without doing any research ahead of time. So hopefully this helps guide you. You know, you'll have to make that final judgment call if you think it's worth it or not. But I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments, especially if you already bought these and watched them. What did you think of the 4K picture quality here? Now, admittedly, I haven't watched any other reviews. I haven't read any other reviews on these. So maybe I'm in the minority in thinking that these upgrades aren't that spectacular. But I really don't think I am, and it's just given the nature of these movies, I don't know how much better they could really look from their Blu-ray counterparts. But anyway, I'm happy with my purchases, which ultimately to me is all that matters. But I really do want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. Let me know if you haven't seen these. Are you now interested in checking them out? Or whatever it is that you want to talk about, leave it down in the comments. I appreciate any and all support down there, so thank you so much for that. But that is going to do it for episode 11 here of Shelf Space. I have 2 more that I've already watched, so you'll probably see another episode here in the coming days. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end here. Before I let you go, though, I'll just encourage you all to consume some media today. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next time.